Yeah, they don't last that long. Just by giving it a drive.
Over here, whenever I put on the YouTube, it always shows you different things that you can possibly watch. There's a gracious singer there. He said it's like, I did one of them. I don't know if I should even say the name in the Beis Medrash. One of them, it shows she's had 394 million hits.
Oh yeah. You're the one
We'll hit her another time.
But one of our views is worth more than 394 million.
So what's going on? Where's our 394 million? Says the Mishnah, really got to get going with something late. Up to noon and that the Mishnah in Yehuda do Melocha till Chatzos. They never did Melocha at all the entire of Pesach. Halayla, what about the night of El Pesach, the night of B'dikas Chametz? Shama Isim Usimatina da Netzachamo. Shama Misil allowed to Melocha the night of B'dikas Chametz. Says the Gemara, Mikot, and I mean Hogum Sift on Yisroel. First Mishnah says Mokum Shenoagu, Mashma, the whole thing's got to Minogim. And now the Mishnah's Lashon is the Yisrael Ikka, it's Mashma, it's Oisin, it's a din of it is Shama Oisrim, it's a din of Issa Beheta, not matter of Minog. If the Issa to Malach on the Pesach is a Minog thing, or Take Issa. It depends whether he lived in Yehuda and Golil. What do we care about Yehuda Golil and Mokish Lagras Melacha? Isim Mokish Lagras is Enois. Since Rameh uses the word Minog, and that's what he's arguing about, Yehuda held was a literal Issa. So go Machrikas Tanoim, whether the Issa to do a Melacha on a Pesach is a matter of Minog or a din to Rabbanon, they're not allowed to do Melacha. Says the Gemara, V'sov Yehuda Abba, Semuta B'Asiyas Melacha, did Yehuda hold that you're allowed to do Melacha on Erev Pesach because he argues the whole thing's a din in Minog. V'Tanya. Somebody who's weeding. V'shleish also on the 13th of Nisan. We all know there's a din of Chodosh. Chodosh means that any grain which was planted and grown after the Omer can only be eaten by the next Omer. So really the best thing to do, or the farmers in Israel would do this, they would plant everything before the 16th of Nisan. Because anything you plant on the 17th of Nisan, you'd have to wait a whole year to be able to eat it, right? They may speak about announcements all the time. What thing? What? That's also in the Chutzah, so one should, if they can, if you can. Anyway, so the Maisa, what would happen if somebody's by mistake pulled out a stalk on the 13th of Nisan? By mistake. So what can he do? If he puts it back in, so the most like this, you put it in a moist place. In a moist place, it will grab roots very quickly, and then it will grow even before, because the 13th of Nisan, you've still got a couple of days till the Omer, and then it will grab root before the Omer, and then the Omer will be matted. But not in a dry place, because if it's in a dry place, it won't grab roots until after the Omer, and it'll be awesome. Really says it hits even worse than a normal plant. Why? When you have a whole field, you'll remember this field is Chadosh, this field is Yosham. But here you've got a whole field of Yosham, which is okay. And you by mistake pulled that one stalk in the process of weeding. If you put it back in and you don't realize that you've not put it back in a good way, then what's happening is you'll never remember that stalk is no good, and then you'll come to eat it. So if you have to be extra careful, it's worse than the normal field. Anyway, why did he talk about the 13th of this and not the 14th? How long does it take for something to take root? 3 days. If you think that the 14th you're allowed to work, you've got the 14th, so we know it's the same kekulu. Part of the day is like the whole day. Now, if you hold that you're allowed to work on the 14th of Nisan, why did he have to talk about a story where he by mistake pulled up a root on the 13th? Talk about the story, he pulled it up on the 14th, and then he's got the 14th, the 15th, and the 16th.
No, it's not. You'd say that in halacha, but not when it needs 3 days.
It says perhaps close to what you were saying. But again, if you say 3 days, And Mixim Kakuloi, you were 14th, 15th, and 16th. So why not talk about a case where you have fruited on the 14th and you quickly replant it? About other big Golul Shanu, we're talking about in the Golul where they were not the Malacha. Why can't you do the night of El Pesach? Why not talk about the 30th? Why talk about B'dikas Chametz night? What? Oh, just going to be Shammai, they hold it. People don't start planting and weeding at night. Like you were saying, halachically speaking, but technically speaking, it takes 3 days. And to say twice when you're planting it on the 14th of Nisan, and then afterwards waiting it to be mutter from the 16th of Nisan will bring the Yom in the morning. So really, you've got less than 2 days even, because you've only got the whole of the 15th, a bit of the 14th, and a tiny bit of the 16th, and therefore it's no good. So the Maisa, we've got Machlekes Tanoim, whether it's a Issa Minhag or Issa Halach not to work on the 14th of Nisan. We've got another Machlekes Tanoim, what about the night of B'dikas Chametz? And you've got also got to do with the Minhag, and regarding replanting, you've got 3 days, but it has to be 3 days, only one of them coming out. It says, any malacha that you began before the 14th of this, unless you start on the 13th to build a house, so you have to finish on the 14th. But you're not allowed to start a new job on the 14th, even though you can finish it. Let's say, for example, you decide to sew a new item of clothing. So you can't start on the 14th, even though you know that you can finish it in one day. There are 3 kinds of workers that we allow them to work till the Chatzoris. We will explain why these 3. Tailors, Vasapoim, haircutting people, Vakuvsin, very good, Vakuvsin, dry washers. Did you hear B'tzali allowed to work at the dry cleaning? Even those who make shoes. Says the Gemara. The Gemara, there are 3 different ways of understanding Shittas Rameir. Rameir said, that's a very good phrase. Key workers are allowed to work on their Pesach. Key workers. There's only 3 key workers. Only 3 kinds of key workers. People who do tailoring, barbers, and nice nowadays barbers are not key workers, are they? Tell them it's a mission not like them. Tell them it's a mission not like them. Now, Rameir said you're allowed to start, if you started before the 14th, you're allowed to finish on the 14th. But you're not allowed to start on the 14th. The Gemara's got now 3 different ways to understand Shittas Rameir. The Gemara declares all 3. When did he say allowed to finish the Tzorech HaMoyed? If it's not for Yom Tov, you're not even allowed to finish. I mean, let's say you started on the 13th or 10th. And now it comes to the 14th, you're not allowed to finish even if it's Tzorech HaMoyed. Now we're talking about not for Yom Tov. You're even allowed to start on the 14th. That means the mission just says according to Rameir, you're allowed to finish on the 14th, you're not allowed to start on the 14th. The Gemara's got 3 ways of seeing Rameir. Either he's referring to Shalol Tzorech HaMoed, but Tzorech HaMoed even allowed to start a new job, or he's talking about Shalol Tzorech HaMoed, but Tzorech you'd be allowed to start but not finish, or he's talking about neither. It makes no difference if it's Tzorech HaMoed or Shalol Tzorech HaMoed. Because Rameir was very not clear whether he's talking about somebody who's doing a job for Yom Tov or not for Yom Tov. He just said you're allowed to finish on the 14th, you're not allowed to start on the 14th. But what was he talking about? Somebody who needs it for Yom Tov or not? Toshima. The more brings a few vices, the more keeps pushing them away until eventually the vice says clearly the words of Rameir. It's a bit difficult because I say it's always clear from the first vice. But what the Gemara tries to say is you can't absolutely prove it until the last vice. Also, I feel it's still cotton, even a small piece of clothing, I feel a shofar katana, even a small belt. So silsil is a belt, shufcha is a hair band. You're not allowed to make even a small belt and even a hairband. My afilu, what's the afilu in these cases? Lav afilu hanid tzorech hamoyed big ben aschuleloi. That even though you need it for Yom Tov, a belt is something which you need for Yom Tov, but a hairband you need for Yom Tov. Nevertheless, it says that that you're not allowed to start. If it's not for Yom Tov, not even allowed to finish. Look. Maybe we're talking about even Shlei how to finish. My afilu, what's the afilu? Not to do because of Yom Tov. Afilu hani nami dezutrinu. Even these which are very easy. That the minute you start, you almost finish. You should be allowed to start because it's like finishing. So Gemara says the word afilu over here is not feeling afilu, even though it's the tzorech hamoed. Afilu over here means afilu, even though it's very easy and it's very quick. Toshma me'omer, come along, Chashid Tzir, Chamod, which is less so for Yom Tov, top of the Haman Beis. Gumo Ba'abos, so that's finished on the 14th. Amos said is one shares Chabokad Ba'abos, aber Shlois Chabokad Ba'abos, so they ask Ba'abos. So only if you started before. And here he clearly used the words that it's L'Tzir Chamod. He said clearly that L'Tzir Chamod, the beginning, if you look at the Haman at the bottom of the page, come along, Chashid Tzir Chamod, you're allowed to finish it for Yom Tov. But if not, if you haven't finished started, you're not allowed to start. I feel it's also called. I feel even a small belt or small head thing. So what's the who had in that? That means the words of Amir were that you're allowed to finish. We were medag that you're not allowed to finish. So no, you can medag this. You're only allowed to finish, not allowed to start. But you can't be medayek regarding Shulul Tzir Chamod. I'm going to say it again because it's important to get it clear. The Meir says that Tzir Chamod you're allowed to finish. So we medayek Shulul Tzir Chamod, not for Yom Tov. You're not even allowed to finish. Say no. The Tzir Chamod you're allowed to finish, but not allowed to start. The Shulul Tzir Chamod we don't know what he would say. Toshma Meir Ina Komalocha Shulul Tzir Chamod Gumo Ba'abos the She'ina Tzir Chamod also. She says clearly that it depends if Tzir Chamod. So again, when we're using our Mishnah phrase, you're allowed to finish on the 14th, you're not allowed to start on the 14th. The Maskana, the Gemara says that phrase is only in a situation where you're doing it for Yom Tov. If you're not doing it for Yom Tov, you're not allowed to finish. So let's say, for example, you started a project before Pesach. You started on the 10th of Pesach, you started 10th of Nisan, you started something. And now Pesach, you've got a couple of hours spare. And you want to finish it, but it's not for Tzorech Yom Tov. According to Amir, are you allowed to? No, according to Amir, you're not allowed to. Only in Tzorech Yom Tov. What's the special about these three? Tana. Since we're allowed certain Chol HaMoed for the sake of Yom Tov, you're allowed to. Hasaf Porin. Somebody who gets let out of prison, or somebody who comes from a distant place, and therefore he never managed to wash his clothes or have a haircut, is allowed to do it on Chol HaMoed. So we see that these are things which we permit in the Chol HaMoed, but most people are not allowed to. They would fix the shoes on Chol HaMoed because they would walk a very lot to get to the Beis Hamikdash. Since you're allowed to fix, you're allowed to also make new shoes. Just because you're allowed to fix the shoes doesn't mean you're allowed to make shoes. There's a very interesting medrash which Zilberstein once there was somebody opened up a new shoe shop. So Zilberstein came up and he was given the schus to put up the mezuzah. So, to cut the river, to put up the mezuzah. So he said, I give you a bracha that one day you should sell lots and lots of colorful shoes in all colors of the rainbow. And everybody around looked around and stunned. When was the last time you bought yourself a pair of green and yellow and purple shoes? Last week? Okay. So they said there's a medrash that says that the shoes they used to wear when they did the Ulei L'Regalim were always very, very colorful because they were so excited they wanted to adorn the mitzvah. And the mitzvah was the Ulei L'Regalim. So your feet did the mitzvah. So you wrapped your feet in colorful things. So he said, I give you a bracha, they should sell colorful shoes. I'm happy to continue. I'm happy to stop. I'll do it by vote. There's 5 people, so hopefully there'll be a majority.
Someone's already voted by.
Yes, feet.
Yeah.
Well, should we stop?
To 12. We've got another 8.5 hours to the.
Right. Okay. What we'll do is we'll stop here.
Yeah,
and what's the Shabbos? Because we've got longer Shabbos. Yeah, it's very easy. It's going to be long. Okay. What's Shabbos for? Right. So tell everybody that we only go up to the first Mishnah. Can you put it on the group?